The brain of a sex addict. A sex addict is capable of doing anything to satisfy their obsession, regardless of the consequences. However, this does not mean that they are happy with their situation. They often wish they could stop their obsession, but it seems impossible to them. Their sexual behavior is very compulsive, obsessive, and difficult to control. This is the biggest challenge of this condition, not knowing how to stop. That poses a bigger problem than having a craving that is more pronounced than anything else. The erotic instinct belongs to man's original nature. It is related to the highest form of spirituality. Carl G. Jung. The brain of the sex addict. The brain of a sex addict is very similar to that of a drug addict or an alcoholic, although this addiction does not use chemical means. The way they think and behave is directly related to an obsessive-compulsive disorder. It makes them use all their focus to find more sexual stimuli. The brain activity of a sex addict reflects the same activity as that of a drug addict. Dr. Valerie Moon is part of the research team at the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Cambridge. She says they still can't call it an addiction. This is despite a study of 19 adult men showing that there is increased brain activity in 3 specific areas of the brain that are related to drug and alcohol addiction. Sex addiction can be assessed to the extent that it affects the emotional health of the person and their ability to live a completely normal life. The dominant neurotransmitter in a sex addict is dopamine. It is associated with motivation and response to rewards. New studies show that there are differences in the brain of an alcoholic and a person who enjoys drinking alcohol without suffering from addiction. Chemical processes, neurological function and brain structure are qualitatively and quantitatively different when comparing an alcoholic with an occasional drinker. Could it be the same case with sex addicts and people who have a more or less healthy, active sex life? Knowing if our brain is addicted. The addict tries to satisfy his sexual appetite because he needs it. It's not because he wants to or enjoys it. In ancient Greece, the satisfying psychosexual act, eros, carnal pleasure, aphrodisiac, and friendly relations, agape, were separated. However, only hypersexuality is related to material sexual desire. It means physical sex or simply aphrodisiac activity. Despite this, a person who enjoys the most personal experiences in their sexuality does not need to hide an addiction to sex. We know that our brain is addicted to sex, and we need help if the following criteria are met. Everyday life is full of thoughts, worries, and sexual fantasies that are impossible to forget. It creates uncontrollable impulses, made to satisfy them. The sexual desire, exaggerated, but the lack of control is dominant in the addiction. Sexual impulse cannot be controlled, prevented, or stopped, even. It creates serious consequences, danger or physical exhaustion. We do not want sex for pleasure or amusement, but for the physiological need to reduce the discomfort associated with the inability to control the addiction. We have been subject to repeated hypersexual behavior or conduct for more than 6 consecutive months. It's not like having a simple need for a casual flirt during an acute stress period. The negative effect is increased. With the emergence of the addiction, there is a heightened sense of guilt or shame. It destroys self-confidence, gives way to depression and self-rejection. It also creates emotional, family and work-related interruptions. There is still much to discover. Sex addiction is the only valve for people who have otherwise been unable to deal with their existential challenges. Rory Reed, a psychologist at UCLA, confirms that there is still much work to be done around the diagnosis, classification, treatment of hypersexuality. He says that their brain confirms a high sexual desire in the expected regions, but the study does not tell us whether these individuals are addicted to sex.